A young Sioux named Black Elk, also known as Hahakasapa, participated in the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876 at the age of 13. He demonstrated remarkable bravery by taking a soldier's scalp during the conflict. As a second cousin to Crazy Horse, a key leader in the battle, Black Elk had a unique perspective on the events as they unfolded. He observed the intensity and chaos of the battle, witnessing the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors defeat the 7th Cavalry Regiment, led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. Black Elk's personal account provides an invaluable insight into this pivotal moment in American history. No white soldiers survived the confrontation with Custer, which concluded swiftly in daylight. Earlier that day, Crazy Horse, a determined chief, had already triumphed over General Crook's forces at Rosebud. It is believed that he could have completely annihilated the soldiers had he called for additional fighters from the villages and executed a morning ambush, as the troops had camped in darkness following the earlier skirmish. Earlier that year, Crazy Horse had successfully defended their Powder River village against cavalry attacks on a frigid March morning during the moon of the snowblind. He then moved west to Rosebud, where he again repelled attacking soldiers before finally advancing to the valley of the Greasy Grass, the ancestral land where his people sought peace. 2 days prior to the battle, the Sioux set up their camp along the southern edge of the Greasy Grass Valley before noon. The village was vast, with an uncountable number of teepees. To the south and upstream were the Hunkpapa, followed by the Agalolas, Miniconju, Sanark, Blackfeet, and Shahiela, with the Santis and Yanktonai located furthest north. To the east, the Greasy Grass flowed, swollen with melted snow from the Bighorn Mountains, its banks lined with trees. From a nearby hill, one could see the mountains to the south and west. Across the river, bluffs and hills rose, intersected by gullies. To the west, lower hills provided grazing land and shelter for numerous ponies. Rattling Hawk, a warrior injured in the hip during the battle at Rosebud, received healing from a medicine man named Harry Chin. The day prior to the conflict, as Black Elk was preparing to swim with his companions, he was summoned by Harry Chin to assist Rattling Hawk in his lodge. 5 other boys accompanied him, eager to embody bears for a healing ceremony, as Harry Chin's abilities were derived from a bear dream. He adorned Black Elk's body and face with yellow paint, added black stripes beside his nose, styled his hair to resemble bear ears, and placed eagle feathers atop his head. During this process, Black Elk recalled his vision and felt as though he was being lifted from the ground. In that instant, I comprehended more than words could express and became aware that misfortune was approaching. A feeling of foreboding enveloped me. The other boys were entirely painted red, each wearing genuine bear ears on their heads. Harry Chin, donned in a real bear pelt, began to chant. At the entrance, the sacred herbs rejoiced. 2 women entered, positioning themselves beside the injured Rattling Hawk, one carrying a vessel of water and the other a bundle of herbs. As I gazed at the cup, I attempted to discern if it contained the entirety of the sky, as I had envisioned, but I could not ascertain. While the herbs and water were presented to Rattling Hawk, Harry Chin continued his incantations. Subsequently, they presented the wounded man with a red cane, and he immediately rose to his feet. Leaning on the sacred staff, Rattling Hawk followed the 2 women out of the lodge. We boys, disguised as small bears, danced around him, growling as part of the ritual. Feathers of various colors protruded from our mouths as we enacted our roles. Afterward, Harry Chin crawled out on all 4s, resembling a bear, or so it appeared to me. Rattling Hawk's limp diminished, and although he was unable to fight the following day, he soon regained his strength. We boys then proceeded to the river to cleanse the paint from our bodies following the ceremony. Upon our return, we found the villagers engaged in dance and recounting tales of valor from the recent conflict at Rosebud. As twilight descended, we were assigned the responsibility of bringing the horses nearer to the camp. By the time we completed this task, night had enveloped the area, yet the festivities persisted around the fires, with the villagers continuing their dance. We mingled among various groups until fatigue overcame us, rendering us unable to remain awake. At dawn, my father roused me and requested my assistance in grazing our horses. As we worked, he instructed me to attach a long rope to one of the horses to facilitate its capture and secure the others. He emphasized the importance of vigilance, cautioning me to keep an eye on the camp and to return the horses swiftly should any trouble arise. Several of us boys tended to our horses together until midday, when the heat became intolerable. We opted to cool off in the river, and my cousin graciously volunteered to watch the horses while we swam. As I applied grease to my skin, an unsettling feeling washed over me, as if calamity were imminent. Nevertheless, I joined the others at the water's edge. To the west of the camp, numerous individuals were occupied with digging turnips, and a sizable group was already swimming. By the time my cousin brought the horses down to drink, we had been in the water for quite some time, with the sun's heat still unyielding. Suddenly, the voice of the crier resonated through the nearby Hahakasapa camp. The soldiers are approaching, they are charging, the soldiers are coming. The alarm spread from camp to camp, reaching even the Santas and Yanktonas. The Oglala crier reiterated the warning, his tone escalating in urgency with each repetition. Everyone hurried to secure their horses, and we were fortunate to have ours nearby. My elder brother, mounted on a sorrel horse, raced toward the Hahakasapas. I was riding a buckskin. When my father heard my brother shout and observed him riding off toward the Hahakasapas without his pistol, he quickly approached me, instructing me to retrieve the weapon from my brother and return it immediately. He possessed my six-shooter, a cherished memento from my aunt. I armed myself, mounted my pony, and pursued my brother. Just beyond the Hahakasapa camp, a thick cloud of dust rose as the Hahakasapas, many still damp from the river, hurried about in panic. Through the haze, the soldiers emerged on their powerful steeds, appearing tall and intimidating as they discharged their firearms. My brother, with a revolver in hand, called out for me to retreat. There was a dense patch of timber just past the Hahakasapas, where some warriors were assembling. My brother made his way there, and I followed suit. Women and children were already fleeing downstream in large numbers. Looking back, I observed them scattering up the hillside. Upon reaching the timber, many Hahakasapas had already congregated there, while the soldiers fired above us, bullets striking the trees and causing leaves to fall. The women and children continued their flight. Warriors rode in on horseback, and I could not discern what was transpiring in the village below. The scene was engulfed in dust, shouts, and the sound of thunder. In the woods and outside the Hahakasapa camp, we all cried out, "Be brave! Do not act like a woman!" The defenseless were gasping for air. I believe this was the moment when Gaul intervened to prevent the Hahakasapas from retreating. I remained in the woods for a time, contemplating my vision. It imbued me with a profound sense of destiny and led me to believe that the army would be vanquished and that my people were beings of thunder. Suddenly, a loud cry pierced through the dust. "Crazy Horse is coming!" The arrival of Crazy Horse was heralded by the sound of eagle-bone whistles and the wild cries of hakahi, reminiscent of the howling wind from the north and west. The valley darkened with dust and smoke, filled with shadows, shouts, pounding hooves, and gunfire. To my left, I could hear the clattering of the soldiers' horses as they retreated into the underbrush, amidst the chaos of gunfire erupting all around. The horses eventually broke through the thickets, and I found myself engulfed in turmoil, with men and horses moving in all directions, rushing upstream while shouting, "Hurry! Move quickly!" We were all intertwined in the confusion as the soldiers advanced upstream. Although my view was limited, I did see a Lakota warrior charging at a soldier who stood resolute and fought valiantly. The Lakota grabbed the soldier's horse by the bridle, but the soldier managed to shoot him with a revolver. Being small in stature, I was unable to push through to the soldiers, so I did not take any lives. The scene was dark and chaotic, with too many bodies in front of me. Soon, both soldiers and numerous Lakotas were crowded into the river, and I found myself in the water for a time. Men and horses became entangled, struggling in the river, creating a sound reminiscent of hail falling. After emerging from the water, individuals began to strip the deceased soldiers of their clothing to wear for themselves. One soldier on the ground was still moving. A Lakota approached and instructed me, "Boy, dismount and scalp him." I got off my horse and commenced the scalping process. His hair was short and my knife was dull. As he ground his teeth, I shot him in the forehead and then took his scalp. Many of our fighters were pursuing the soldiers up a hill on the opposite side of the river, while the remainder of the group moved downstream. In the meantime, the riverbank's bends and bushes continued to conceal our actual lodges. After that, Sitting Bull went to prepare more medication and didn't come back until the conflict was done. Despite being a great leader, he refrained from fighting that day. Even though I wasn't a head chief, I led a group of fierce hunk papa warriors. Gall assumed command as head chief during the battle, while Goose led the Bannocks and Crazy Horse led the Cheyennes. We were ready for battle, knowing that the soldiers' horses were worn out and that they had been tricked by the empty lodges, thinking we were just a small group, but we were determined and ready. The soldiers made a crucial mistake when they divided their forces. In order to intercept them, Gall took the majority of our troops upriver, leaving us to contend with the long-haired re-scouts who remained. We seized the chance. Some of our young guys circled back to stop the soldiers' escape as they crossed the bluffs. The men rushed forward when we made our line visible, but they soon returned to our fire. Our young guys behind them, meantime, also started fire. I saw a few officers pointing and conversing, but they all appeared to be the same. I didn't notice long yellow hair then, or subsequently. The re-scouts began singing their death song. They were aware of their doom. Every fourth man held the ponies as the men dismounted and the others got ready to battle on foot. Like a wave smashing into beach, we surrounded them. We started by shooting the people who owned the horses and then stampeding the horses with blankets. Our women captured the already weary ponies with ease. I had breathed the bitter smoke of combat and sung my war song. Anger was black in my heart. The way I fought was like I was insane. I hurried ahead and grabbed their flag in the midst of combat. I swiftly severed my pony's thong and jumped up when it was shot and collapsed beneath me. I knocked down the flag bearer with my war club and dashed back to our line, holding their flag. It was a courageous act, and as our fighters encouraged me, I felt proud. However, there was no time for relaxation. We were still fighting hard. My face was pelted with hot, nasty blood and brains. In a fit of rage, I shot, slashed, and killed everyone in my way as I stormed back into the battle on another pony. I mounted another pony after that. One was also shot out from under me. I remembered my promise to him when I noticed a little hair. I rushed forward recklessly, frantic and unafraid, believing that my white weasel tail charm would keep me safe. How many soldiers I killed in my attempt to get to him is unknown to me. He stood motionless in terror as he realized who I was, and I yelled and laughed at him. His lips twitched as though he was speaking, but his voice was muffled by the sound of the fighting. He was afraid. I used my revolver to shoot him when I was close enough. My gun vanished in the midst of the mayhem. It didn't matter where it went, I'm not sure. I got off my pony and kept my promise. Before triumphantly riding away with Little Hare's heart in hand, I cut out his heart, bit off a chunk, and spat it in his face. I was pleased and gave it a victorious shake. I had kept my promise. Now nothing else mattered. I never went back to the battlefield after that. Later, the ladies arrived to end the injured soldiers by removing their possessions and chopping off their boots to make leather. To remove rings faster, they even cut off fingers. My part in the battle was over by then. I had accomplished my goal. The hunt for Custer's scalp, or long yellow hairs, after the battle was unsuccessful. He had chopped his hair short and worn no uniform, so he was completely unrecognizable. We celebrated our triumph that evening with a lavish feast and a scalp dance. During the celebration, Sitting Bull spoke to us and declared, "I told you my medicine would work. It gave you courage." Gall disputed him, stating, "We did the combat," when he claimed credit for the win. "All you produced was medicine." Tension developed between the two leaders as a result of this dispute. We were unable to pursue and destroy the remaining men on the hill because of their competition, which broke our togetherness. The conflict between the two men over leadership split the camp, with some Indians supporting Sitting Bull and others Gow. Their argument didn't concern me personally. I took charge of my own team and didn't follow directions. I preferred dancing over fighting because I was tired of it. We soon found out that additional troops armed with heavy artillery were on their way. We went north and crossed the Canadian border to avoid more conflict. After pursuing us for a while, the soldiers eventually gave up. A larger boy named Round Fool was circling these bushes. When we inquired about his actions, he informed us that a white man was concealed within the foliage, and indeed there was. The man had taken refuge there when the other soldiers retreated to the hilltop and had remained hidden throughout the night. We began to shoot arrows at him, which felt akin to hunting a rabbit. He darted from one side of the bush to the other as we maneuvered around, firing our bows. At one point, he cried out, and eventually we ignited the grass surrounding the bushes, prompting him to flee. Some of our warriors managed to kill him. After ascending the back of the hill where some of our men were stationed, we surveyed the area. Although we could not see the soldiers entrenched in their fortifications, we did observe the horses and packed mules, many of which lay dead. Upon returning down the hill and crossing the river once more, some soldiers fired at us, striking the water. It was nearly evening when my mother and I galloped back to camp. By that time, our scouts had reported that more soldiers were advancing upstream, prompting us to decide to dismantle our camp. Before nightfall, we had packed our belongings and began our ascent up the slick grass toward Woodloose Creek in the Bighorn Mountains, traveling through the night along the Greasy Grass. My mother placed several puppies into the pony drag that my two younger brothers and I rode in. The puppies persistently attempted to escape, which resulted in me spending considerable time returning them to the drag, leaving me with little opportunity for sleep. By dawn, we arrived at a small dry creek, set up camp, and enjoyed a hearty meal. The meat was marbled with fat, and I find myself wishing for some of it at this moment. By noon, we set off again and reached Woodloose Creek at the base of the mountains, where we established our camp. There we encountered 3 bears, and a man with severe injuries began to convulse, repeatedly uttering the name Johnny. The meaning of this remains unclear to me. He ultimately succumbed, and we designated that location as the camp where Giannini passed away. That evening, a sense of alarm spread through the camp as people began to shout that soldiers were approaching. I glanced over and saw what appeared to be troops advancing towards us, but it turned out to be some of our own men, playfully dressed in soldiers' uniforms. The scouts confirmed that the soldiers had not pursued us, and we were now safe. Throughout the camp, large fires blazed, and victory dances continued late into the night. I trust this first-hand account provides you with a new perspective on the Battle of Little Bighorn and the Great Sioux War of 1876. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and enable notifications for more content from this channel.